Have you ever noticed that the deeper you think, the more disconnected you start to feel? The more you understand, the less people seem willing to listen? It's not just your imagination. Society has always been uneasy around deep thinkers. Not because they're wrong, but because they perceive things others prefer to ignore. History proves this pattern again and again. From Socrates to Nietzsche, from Galileo to Tesla, brilliant minds have been mocked, silenced, or disregarded. Not due to a lack of intelligence, but because they made others uncomfortable. Arthur Schopenhauer, one of the most brutally honest philosophers, believed intelligence was less a blessing and more a curse, one that separates those who see the world too clearly from those who choose to remain blind. But why does this happen? Why does society instinctively push back against people who think differently? The answer lies deep within human psychology. Consider this. When you stand next to someone physically strong, you don't usually feel threatened. You might even admire them. When you meet someone rich, envy may arise, but it's rarely personal. Yet, when you encounter someone intellectually superior, something strange happens. Psychologists refer to this as the mirror effect. A deep thinker doesn't merely present new ideas. They reflect the limitations of everyone around them, and people rarely forgive that. The simple presence of someone who thinks deeply can make others feel inadequate, even when the deep thinker says nothing at all. But why does this reaction occur? Why does intelligence, more than any other kind of superiority, provoke such unease? To understand this, we must look at how our minds interpret different forms of dominance. When someone is physically stronger, we may view them as a protector or leader. When someone is wealthier, we might admire their success or even aspire to reach it ourselves. Strength, beauty, and wealth are all external attributes. We recognize them, but they don't necessarily threaten who we believe we are. Intelligence, however, operates on a different level. Unlike muscles or money, intellect is intimately tied to identity. We define ourselves by our thoughts, beliefs, and understanding of the world. So, when we meet someone who thinks on a deeper level, someone who questions what we accept without thought, it can feel like a direct challenge to our sense of self. Instead of admiration, people often respond with quiet resistance, not because the deep thinker is arrogant or dismissive, but because their very existence exposes others to their own limitations. Throughout history, this is why deep thinkers have often been pushed to society's edges. Their insights don't just challenge ideas, they challenge egos. And humans, by nature, will go to great lengths to protect their egos from discomfort. Think about it. Have you ever tried to bring up a complex or profound topic in casual conversation, only to be met with blank stares or awkward silence? Have you noticed how quickly people change the subject once a discussion moves beyond small talk? That's not random. It's a defense mechanism. When people encounter a deep thinker, their minds instinctively shift into self-preservation mode. Rather than showing curiosity, they resist. Instead of engaging, they dismiss. This is why philosophers, intellectuals, and visionaries throughout history have so often found themselves isolated. Not because they desire solitude, but because society distances itself from them. Interestingly, research shows that in social contexts, confidence tends to be valued more than intelligence. People are naturally drawn to those who appear certain, even when their ideas lack depth. This explains why charismatic yet simplistic thinkers often gain far more influence than those who speak with nuance and subtlety. History offers endless examples. Populist leaders, motivational speakers, viral influencers, all thriving by telling people what they want to hear instead of encouraging them to think critically. Meanwhile, those who question accepted beliefs struggle to reach a wide audience. This is the great paradox of intelligence. The pursuit of truth often leads to alienation. The deeper a person seeks understanding, the more distant they become from the majority. The mirror effect not only reveals society's intellectual limits, but also exposes why real change is so difficult. But if intelligence truly provokes such discomfort, is there any scientific evidence that people actually fear it? Modern neuroscience says yes. Studies reveal that when individuals feel intellectually inferior, their amygdala, the part of the brain responsible for processing fear and threats, activates intensely. In other words, deep thinking doesn't just intimidate, it can trigger a primal survival response, as if the person were facing physical danger. But why does intelligence activate the same fear circuits as a physical threat? The answer lies in evolution. For most of human history, survival didn't depend on being the smartest. It depended on being accepted by the group. Our ancestors thrived in tribes where social harmony meant safety. Rejection from the group could easily lead to death, as isolation meant vulnerability. Because of this, the human brain evolved to prioritize belonging over brilliance. Acceptance became more vital than truth. So, when a highly intelligent person enters a social setting, they unknowingly disrupt the tribe's balance. Their presence challenges established norms, shared beliefs, and the comfort of conformity. The brain interprets this disruption as a threat, not from a predator, but from an idea. This explains why many deep thinkers often feel out of place, not due to a lack of social skill, but because their minds make them stand out in a world that values fitting in over standing out. A 2021 study from Stanford University revealed something fascinating. People's reactions to deep thinkers depend heavily on context. In one-on-one conversations, individuals tend to feel less threatened by intelligence. But in group settings, the threat response increases dramatically. Why? Because social status becomes a factor. In groups, people don't only respond to intelligence itself, they react to how others perceive them in comparison. If someone feels overshadowed by a deep thinker, they may instinctively undermine or exclude that person to protect their own social image. This is why deep thinkers often find meaningful conversations easier in private, intimate settings, but struggle in larger social environments where competition for validation takes over. Psychologists have identified several cognitive biases that help explain why intelligence so often meets resistance. One is the Dunning-Kruger effect. People with limited ability tend to overestimate their competence, while those with true knowledge often doubt themselves. This creates tension. Those who understand less believe they understand more, leading them to reject deeper thinkers. Then there's status quo bias. The human brain prefers familiar ideas over complex or unsettling truths. New insights demand mental effort and can challenge comfort zones, so they are instinctively resisted. Another is the backfire effect. When people are confronted with information that contradicts their beliefs, they don't usually change their minds. Instead, they cling to their existing views even more strongly. Deep thinkers frequently face this reaction when introducing uncomfortable ideas. In today's digital age, social media has magnified this resistance to intelligence. Algorithms reward engagement, not depth, so emotionally charged or controversial content spreads much faster than thoughtful, reasoned discussion. Look at what goes viral. Catchy slogans and simplified statements dominate, while complex, nuanced ideas are often ignored. For intellectuals, this creates a challenge. The more profound their ideas, the harder it becomes to compress them into bite-sized, viral-friendly content. As a result, society increasingly favors entertainment over enlightenment. making it even harder for deep thinkers to gain acceptance. The rejection of intelligence, therefore, isn't merely social. It's psychological, biological, and cultural. It's deeply woven into human nature, reinforced by group behavior, and amplified by modern technology. But not all hope is lost for intelligence. Throughout history, societies have always needed a small group of people willing to think beyond the surface, to question, analyze, and see what others overlook. These are the thinkers, inventors, philosophers, and artists who drive progress, even when they're misunderstood or mocked. Humanity evolves because of them, not despite them. When intelligence is rejected, progress slows down, but it never truly stops. The curious mind, by nature, cannot be silenced forever. Even if truth is buried under layers of ignorance or prejudice, someone will always come along to uncover it again. Ideas are resilient. They survive exile, censorship, and ridicule. They adapt, finding new ways to reach new generations. Think of figures like Socrates, Galileo, or Darwin. Each faced intense opposition in their time, yet their ideas eventually transformed the world. Their stories show that while the masses may resist intelligence, time tends to favor truth. The initial rejection becomes a necessary trial, separating shallow trends from enduring wisdom. The struggle, then, is not just to be intelligent, but to remain steadfast in the face of misunderstanding. Deep thinkers must learn to communicate their insights in ways that bridge the gap between complexity and accessibility, without diluting the essence of their thoughts. The rejection of intelligence is, paradoxically, what keeps intelligence sharp. Resistance becomes the fire that tempers thought, forcing the mind to refine its clarity and purpose. In that sense, every act of rejection becomes part of the evolution of consciousness itself. However, the struggle of intelligence in modern society is becoming increasingly subtle. Today, rejection doesn't always come in the form of open hostility. Instead, it manifests through distraction, overstimulation, and superficial validation. The modern world offers endless entertainment and instant gratification, leaving little room for stillness, the very space where deep thought thrives. People rarely have time to sit with their own thoughts anymore. The constant flood of notifications, videos, and opinions creates a mental noise that drowns out introspection. Intelligence, which requires contemplation and patience, becomes less visible in a culture that values speed over depth. The intelligent voice is not silenced, it's simply lost in the overwhelming chorus of triviality. What makes this particularly dangerous is that people begin to believe that knowing about something is the same as understanding it. Information is abundant, but wisdom is scarce. The internet has made it easy to appear knowledgeable while lacking true comprehension. Many speak loudly about subjects they barely grasp, while those who genuinely understand often hesitate, aware of the complexity behind every truth. This illusion of knowledge breeds a false sense of superiority that further alienates real intelligence. It's not that people hate intelligence. They've just confused it with confidence, popularity, or eloquence. In this noisy landscape, true understanding must fight harder than ever to be heard. Thus, the rejection of intelligence has evolved. It's no longer fueled by fear alone, but by distraction, a quiet, passive rejection hidden beneath constant entertainment and endless information. In this modern landscape, intelligence must adapt to survive. True thinkers are learning not only how to uncover truth, but also how to communicate it in a world that rewards simplicity and spectacle. To be understood today requires a balance between depth and clarity, a translation of complex ideas into forms that can reach distracted minds without losing their essence. This doesn't mean dumbing down the message. It means learning the art of connection. Great communicators throughout history, like Carl Sagan or Alan Watts, knew how to express profound ideas in ways that felt accessible, poetic, and alive. They proved that intelligence doesn't have to be cold or distant. It can inspire emotion, curiosity, and even awe. The future of intelligence may depend on this ability to blend reason with empathy, logic with imagination. A purely rational voice might be dismissed as elitist, while a purely emotional one risks losing depth. But when intellect speaks through creativity, through stories, art, and metaphor, it reaches beyond the intellect alone. It touches the human spirit. In this sense, the task of the modern thinker is not just to understand reality, but to awaken it in others, to use intelligence not as a weapon of superiority, but as a bridge to shared awareness. That's how ideas endure, not by dominating, but by resonating. Because in a world where everyone is speaking, those who can speak truth with beauty and clarity will always find an audience, no matter how small at first. And sometimes, one awakened mind is enough to start a quiet revolution. History shows us that deep thinkers often suffer during their lifetimes, yet their influence grows long after. Socrates challenged common beliefs and encouraged critical thought, but his contemporaries condemned him, ultimately sentencing him to death. Galileo revealed truths that defied centuries of religious dogma and spent years under house arrest. Nikola Tesla's visionary ideas were suppressed, while industrialists profited from his innovations. Alan Turing, whose work saved millions of lives and laid the foundation for modern computing, was persecuted for his identity and died tragically young. These stories reveal a pattern. Society doesn't reject intelligence because it is incorrect, but because it is disruptive. Deep thinkers expose flaws, challenge comfort zones, and highlight inconvenient truths. People resist them, not because their ideas are false, but because their presence demands reflection, a confrontation with one's own limitations and blind spots. Yet, this resistance doesn't diminish the value of their contributions. Over time, society often reevaluates these thinkers, recognizing their insights as revolutionary. What was once feared or ridiculed becomes celebrated and foundational. The rejection itself becomes a sign that the ideas were ahead of their time. For those who feel isolated due to their depth, these historical examples provide perspective. Loneliness isn't a failure. It's often an indicator that one is seeing further, questioning more, and pushing boundaries that others are not yet ready to explore. The challenge is not to conform, but to navigate wisely, choosing when, where, and how to share insights. So what can deep thinkers do in a world that often resists them? First, understand that isolation is not a sign of failure. It's a natural consequence of clarity in a society that prefers comfort over truth. Seek out like-minded individuals, whether through books, online communities, or intellectual circles. Quality connections matter far more than quantity. Learn to communicate profound ideas with clarity, patience, and empathy. Einstein once said, "If you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough." Deep thinkers see things differently, and while that may make some uncomfortable, it also gives them the ability to illuminate paths others cannot yet see. Schopenhauer reminded us that talent hits a target no one else can reach, but genius hits a target no one else can even see. Intelligence, while often isolating, is also empowering. It allows a person to perceive reality more clearly, to question assumptions, and to contribute meaningfully to human progress. Society may fear deep thinkers, but it is precisely those thinkers who advance knowledge, art and understanding. If you've ever felt like an outsider for your thoughts, take solace. You are not alone. Being misunderstood is not a flaw. It is a mark of foresight and depth. Share your ideas wisely, nurture intellectual friendships, and keep seeking truth. Society may resist, but deep thinkers are the ones who move humanity forward. Their voices may be quiet at first, but their impact endures far beyond the noise of the moment. If this video resonated with you, share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever faced rejection for thinking deeply? Let's start a conversation. And if you want to explore more insights from history's greatest minds, hit that subscribe button. We're just getting started.